Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. I really need to delete at least one of my streaming apps. To be or not to be? That is the question. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 50 World War II games of all time, numbers 50 through 41. We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me for this inaugural list. I'm very excited. I have done top 10 lists of my favorite World War II games. I thought, what the hey, I'm going to do my top 50 of all time. Now, part of me is reluctant to do this. I've mentioned this before when I've done World War II lists. A lot of people are very upset that I don't like the games that they like, and they get very childish and call names. And, you're going to see some hex and counter games on this list, but it's not all hex and counter games. So if you think that might trigger you, maybe you should watch something else, but I really hope you'll stick around and enjoy my list for what it is. And by all means, let me know what your favorite games are in the comments. So before I get started with my top 50 games of World War II, a few brief honorable mentions. Absolute War from GMT Games. This is a great Eastern Front World War II game with some great card play, a big grand strategic Eastern Front game. Pacific Victory. This is a block war game from Columbia Games. It is a war game in which we see, of course, the Americans battling the Japanese, and the British are in there. Great theater level war game. Rommel in the Desert. This is another one from Columbia Games, a block war game about the war in North Africa. Very fun. U-Boot from Phalanx Games is a game that actually simulates what it's like to be on a U-boot, an undersea boot, where you're out hunting for merchantmen and what have you during the Second World War. It is app integrated, so you use an app to kind of help navigate the ship and fight enemies. Conflict of Heroes, Guadalcanal, fun hex encounter game. This is the only one of the Conflict of Heroes series I played. I really enjoyed it. And then finally, one that is not in general release. I played a prototype for a Kickstarter campaign that unfortunately failed. I hope they're bringing it back. I think they are. But this was Song for War Mediterranean Theater, which is a great kind of epic Mediterranean game of World War II. All right, with that in mind, let's go ahead now and jump into my top 50, number 50 through 41. Number 50 is SeaWolves Solitaire from Tergalium Games. SeaWolves Solitaire is a great game it's a solitaire game. You take on the role of a U-boat commander. You have to kind of plot a course as you're moving. Different events trigger. You're rolling die to see what events trigger. And then you can make the decision to go after certain ships. And then you kind of go to a battle board. And what's cool is as you are maneuvering, as you are moving, you really don't move, but everything in relation to you on that board moves, and you can pick your targets there. Great kind of World War II submarine U-boat theme. Pretty light and introductory, but it's great fun. That is my number 50. That's SeaWolves Solitaire from Tergalium Games. My number 49 from GMT Games is Salerno 43. This is a hex encounter game which simulates the invasion of Salerno in Italy in September of 1943. Now, this is Mark Clark's Fifth Army. You've got the British 10th Corps, the American 6th Corps, as you are landing on different sides of the Sele River. And, of course, the Germans can counterattack down the river valley there. They don't have to do that. That's what they did historically, but it kind of recreates that. I really like this game for a lot of reasons. It's probably on my upper level of complexity I like for hex and counter games. Not that it's super complex. It's just I don't like the super complex games. A lot of people do. That's not my cup of tea. But I like this one. I thought it was fun. And part of it, too, is I wrote my dissertation partially on the Battle of Salerno. So I thought that was kind of fun to play it out in game form. Does a great job. Looks great. Paper map, which I'm not wild about. But on the whole, I really enjoyed Salerno 43. that is Salerno 43 from GMT Games, my number 49. My number 48 is another Hex Encounter game. This was from Victory Point Games when I played it. I think it may have been released since, or it's going to be. But this is No Retreat 3 France 1940. Essentially, this is it's a card-driven Hex Encounter game where the Germans are invading through the Maginot Line, around the Maginot Line, through Belgium, the Ardennes, and the French, of course, are trying to defend and put what roadblocks they can in front of the Germans and hopefully contain them or even push them back. But I really like the card play here. It was great fun. This was a game that I had, and I don't even remember what I did with it, but I'm kicking myself. I wish I still had this one because I really enjoyed it. A great, World War II in the West 1940 game. So that is No Retreat 3, France 1940. That was from Victory Point Games. My number 47 is a Euro game in disguise. It looks like a war game, but it's really a Euro. This is Race for Moscow 1941. This is from Phalanx Games. And how this game works is essentially you've got 3 different players. You can play a 4th player, but honestly, I think it probably works well with just 3. I've only played it with 3. But you're the 3 different army groups, North, Center, and South. German army invading Russia in 1941. And as they are doing this, as they're moving in there, it's really less about combat, although maneuver does play a part, but it's more about logistics, and it's about keeping trains and trucks moving to keep your army supplied, because you've got your armies, they've got certain amounts of food, of ammunition, of oil, and then when you attack, you just draw a card, and it says what items you need to overcome that card. And if you don't have them, you don't advance. So you're really incentivized to keep these supply lines moving and flowing every round. It's a great game of supply and logistics and kind of teaching you those lessons. Really, that's as fundamental as strategy in modern warfare, and certainly in World War II. Well, that is Race for Moscow, 1941. That is my number 47. That is from Phalanx Games. My number 46 is Victory in Europe. Victory in Europe is a theater-level game of the European theater. That the board is egg-shaped. It's pretty interesting. It's an egg-shaped game. But again, it's a block war game that is also card-driven. And of course, the cards come out based on the different years that you're playing. So as you're advancing, as you're attacking and whatnot, you're kind of limited to the cards from that calendar year. But as the game advances, you open up more cards. So there's kind of the historical arc that plays out through these cards, but it's certainly not scripted. There's still a lot of room for a historical maneuver in that game. And it's a great, as I say, European theater level game. So that is Victory in Europe from Victory Point Games, Columbia Games. That is from Columbia Games. I'm sorry. Victory in Europe from Columbia Games. And that is my number 46. My number 45 is Assault Red Horizon from Assault Games. Now, this is, again, a Barbarossa game. This is the German invasion of Russia in 41. And what I really like about this game is, there's a lot of things I like about it, but it starts with equipment from like the late 30s. You're not playing with the big bad weapons that came, in 42, 43, 44, etc. You're playing with what they had going into Russia, both the Russians, both the Soviets, and the Germans, and so that's cool. There's a lot of kind of period specific weaponry you're using here, but it's a hex encounter game, but it's weird because like the tanks and the vehicles are like pointed to the vertices, which is different instead of to a side. That's pretty cool. But I like too the various cards for the equipment and the units show kind of what attack and defense values are through dice. It's kind of different colored dice are used for those different kinds of attacks and defense. But it's really fun. Some great scenarios. Great hex encounter war game of the Eastern Front. So that is Assault Red Horizon. That is my number 45, and that is from Assault Games. My number 44 is a game that is, once again, Eastern Front, Russia, hex encounter war game. This is the Russian Campaign 5th edition. I haven't played any of the other editions. I just played the 5th edition. And this is a great, again, theater level game. It's a big game. It's a game that does a great job of illustrating just the German strength in those initial rounds, those initial months of combat, rounds of the game, that slowly dissipates as strategic consumption sets in, and as the army moves forward, but its units have to stay behind to resupply or garrison stuff. Meanwhile, the Soviets are slowly gaining strength, and it does a great job simulating that. It does a great job, using air power and how you use air power and stuff. I really enjoyed this game. It's a big game. It's not one I could get to the table very often, unfortunately. This is one that was purged recently, but it's a fantastic, great Eastern Front hex and counter game. So that is number 4, the Russian Campaign, 5th edition from GMT Games. My number 43 is from GMT Games once again. This is Conquest and Consequence. This is a block war game that is kind of the spiritual sequel to another game that may show up later on the list. But essentially, one player plays the Western Allies, the Americans, and the British. One player plays the Soviets, and one player plays the Japanese. And as you're playing the game, it starts out actually in, I think, 36. So it doesn't start out as a war game. It starts out as a diplomatic game, and you're kind of like vying diplomatically for a lot of the countries in Asia for their support. And that's going to kind of contribute to a lot of your resources and industry and population. And you're looking at those tracks because they're kind of important. In fact, once the war begins, you look at the least of those, and that's kind of what gives you your ability to buy units and repair units as the game goes on. But it's got some great events. You've got great technology. You play the cards for technology. You're looking for like set collection for technology, even as you're doing conventional block war game stuff on the board. So that is really a lot of fun. Pacific Theater, Conquest and Consequence. That is number 43. That is from GMT Games. My number 42 is a much smaller game, and it's one that I just came out fairly recently. Played it a few times and just fell in love with it. It's a small box, but this is General Orders World War II. Essentially, it is a worker placement World War II game. You've got these tiny, tiny little boards. It's double-sided, and you're moving your units along the board. But there's different actions that they can take. Different, you're trying to move and to occupy different spaces to gain advantage in the game. One side is like kind of mountains, and the other side is kind of islands, and you've got air power on that side, so you've got to be wary of kind of how air power works as well. But it's a great, like I say, it's a worker placement World War II game. It almost sounds like a game that somebody made on a dare. I bet you can't make a worker placement World War II game, and they did. But it's quick, it's not a long game, it's fun, it's engaging, and it's one I really enjoyed. So that is that is General Orders World War II. That is from Osprey Games. Okay, finally, my number 41. My number 41 is a game. It's a naval warfare game that is incredibly intimidating, but it is an awful lot of fun. This is Atlantic Chase from GMT Games. This is a game that it's unlike any game I've ever played because you've got kind of like naval hexes, but what you do is you actually create trajectories for where, essentially your course for where the ship is going. And then the German player, this is the German surface fleet in 1939. The German player is going to try to intercept those ships and sink them. And so it's really kind of a hunting mission. You got these German pocket battleships trying to find these merchantmen along these trajectories. Meanwhile, the British can dispatch their own fleet and try to come after you. It is, like I said, it's like nothing I've ever played. There's a big learning curve here. I played it solo. I played it with friends. Unfortunately, it's kind of one that's hard to get to the table. So again, this is another one I purged, but it's really a lot of fun. And if you put the time into it, I think you'll really enjoy it. So this is number 41. That is Atlantic Chase, and that is from GMT Games. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is my top 50 World War II games, numbers 50 through 41. Let me know, what do you think? Do you like these games? Do you not like these games? What games do you think would occupy similar places in your top 50 list? I'm very eager to know about that. Once again, if you are interested in military history, I did ask you to humbly check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where I talk about military history and books on history and fun things like that. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to that channel. I'd also ask you to go ahead and, if you really enjoy the kind of content we bring here, please click on the super thanks button and leave a tip. In my hometown, the streets were lined with sandpaper. It was a rough neighborhood.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
We ask that you like our Facebook page and